When do you get to the point of actual pacing? Because you've described this process that's 6 months of laying your foundation, getting the first part of the book down, of organizing things, and then rapid sprint to the finish, which does track with the experience of reading the novel. All the pieces are just, oh my god, oh my god. But when do you go back through and start to really worrying about pace? Is that a constant worry from the start, or you just get the thing down and then go back and revise for it?
I had an editor, my erstwhile trusted friend and editor, Faye Jacobs, and I hand her the book. She's the only person who sees the book at 30 pages, 40 pages, whatever it is in the beginning. And I ask her to edit the beginning of the book. And then I go back. So, and I mean, I will only be 50 pages in when I ask her to look at 40. I write the front of the book, and then I want the front of the book on a first pass edit, because I may go back and change it anyway, but on a first pass edit to make sure all of my pacing is correct, that I'm picking the book up where I need to pick the book up from, and that the book is holding its own.
So how much time do you spend in revision? I mean, if you're talking 6 months to a year to write the thing, how much time are you spending in revision, and what does your revision process look like?
I revise every time I sit down. I mean, the hardest thing for me is to sort of sign off in sections and say, okay, we can go forward now. What I will say is my revisions tend to be quick. I'm a very lean writer. I don't use, so because I will send it to my editor at 40. I might send it again at 100 pages just for the heck of it and say, take a look and make sure that, and again, because they're all sort of different, and that's the only way I can explain it. And because they're all different, there are places where I feel like, I want to look at this now. From when I finish a book, I send it off. My revisions are, my turnaround is very fast on revisions. I don't tend to argue, and I think, again, this is where my strength of working in television comes back, or the background of television becomes one of my strengths. I suppose would be the right way to say that, is I'm very accustomed to notes. I've given a lot of notes in my career, and I believe in the value of notes. So when I go back into the editorial process, I'm not looking to argue for the most part. I, of course, know that every note they give is wrong, but I'll do them anyway.
Sure.
Because my genius was so there.
Of course.
I didn't even have a note. But I don't.
It's like taking divine dictation. I wrote it right the first time, of course.
Right, exactly. So I tend to go back, and I tend to be very fast on revisions, because I'll sit down. The harder ones are where you get into something where it's like, you can't make this leap. You need to, but I am. And I think one of the advantages being a page one forward writer is that because I've looked at it already twice before I got to the end, I tend to be in pretty decent shape. And then, as I say, and on things like, I think we all have, I'll call them writer tics. I had to learn that I use the word that too many times. So now every time I write the word that, I check it in the moment.
I have a vendetta against the word that. Yes, I understand.
So, being on the fourth book, you tend to correct those. I just think if you're open to hearing the notes and working the notes, your editorial goes pretty smoothly and pretty quickly. So my editorial is really how fast can they get me their notes, and I will turn it back around.
So aside from your editor, who do you trust to give you notes? Do you have critique partners? Who are you employing?
My editors. I have multiple editors, actually, and my publisher, and my partner will read it. There are a few people, but really no. I mean, I write the story I want to write, And then what I want back from that story is what's wrong with that story, obviously, as we all do. And then I have...
Well, a little compliment along the way wouldn't hurt.
Oh, no. We've had that battle, which is first tell me it's brilliant, then tell me where I need to fix it.
Sure.
Start with, oh my God, I've never read anything this good. And I have a wee little thought, But that for me is I'm actually, and again, part of that is the luxury of, you at this point know your series. So you're looking at people to say, yes, it paces the same. You didn't go off the rails. You didn't do this. Does it have something to say? Is it emotional or exciting or this or that? And beyond that, so I don't keep a beta reading group.
Okay. So you don't have, this is my trusted 17-year-old who always checks to go through and make sure.
Well, because they aged out.
Unfortunately. And then.
But for example, though, in this particular book, Say Her Name, I do have a not quite 17-year-old, but a young teenager, because he was also, Joe Saraceni, wonderful, wonderful young man, was also my guide to the deaf world for questions that I had. How would I sign something contemporary? What would I say in response to this? There, and he sent me back a note once with a question. I was like, good question. And a question from a more 17-year-old point of view. And I was like, it's actually a great question. So so it's not that it doesn't get incorporated, it just doesn't get incorporated by a beta reading group. Gotcha.
Oh, you're getting the information where you need it. You've just established your way of how you're going to go about it. But I wanted to ask you about having given notes to so many writers over the years, and inevitably probably have broken some hearts along the way. I assume that goes with the territory. Are there excuses, things you've heard writers say to you that you now have to rule out and be harder on yourself because you've heard those from other writers and you can't take that from yourself? Or are you a little bit easier on you than you maybe would be to somebody that's brought you a script that's not quite there?
No, I'm just trying to think of the best way to answer this. I think the biggest thing that you have to know is the difference between different isn't better, different's just different, and I always tell people, take the notes. Take the notes. If you are dealing with people whose job is to make you better at your craft, and you believe that, take the note. But the issue isn't always about taking the note. The issue is about really understanding the note. And because sometimes somebody will say, well, I think the reaction's wrong. And the real note isn't that the reaction is wrong. The real note is that you didn't set up for the reaction correctly.
I got you.
So you have two different ways of looking at that note. So if that reaction is correct, then why didn't they feel that way? Like if that's the reaction you want on the page, you want somebody to say, oh my God. Then what didn't you set up to warrant that reaction?
That makes perfect sense.
So, it's those kinds of things. So no, I think my note, and the other thing I used to say to writers all the time, if you're only going to have one great idea, don't share it with me. I think there's a certain amount of nothing is, you are not going to have something that is so sacred that no one's ever thought of it. It's going to be about your execution of that.
I am officially stealing that, and I'm going to pass it off as mine. That is brilliant. If you're only going to have one great idea, don't share it with me. Oh, I love it.
No. So I'm like, so let's get down to brass tacks. What are we writing? What are we doing? And I just think you have to say, okay, if they're not getting something, what didn't I put down? Like, you don't have to agree with it. You have to say, and again, this comes only, and I put this because people will have their best friend read something. And the minute you ask for an opinion, you're going to get it. And, oh, well, I didn't really like Susie because Susie wasn't very nice. And it's like, okay, but maybe Susie's job isn't to be very nice. The minute you sit down, though, and you're sitting down with people who are fellow writers, they're agents, they're editors. They are in some way qualified along with your best friend, and they're all saying Susie's not very nice. You have to look at that and say, okay, what is it that I'm not delivering? Okay, and it may be that you're not delivering that Susie's job is not to be very nice. You know, what are you not delivering? You have to take notes or not grow. And in which case, you should make that book for your mom.
She's not going to read it, but she'll tell you she loves it.
But she's going to love it.
She'll never confess that she just skimmed parts of the end there, but by God, she loves you, so she loves it, sure.
Right.